the outside. Even to gather virtually like this, the connections we have and that we make sharing this experience are vital to the success in our efforts and in organizing, as will be illustrated later in the evening by Heather Booth. Be the Change, Be More began in October 2017. I'm Jennifer Downs, and Betsy Krieger and I were tootling down to Virginia to canvas, and we cooked up this idea. We wanted a way to gather and share, and make it interesting and fun. We wanted to educate ourselves, learn specific and strategic actions that we can take with whatever time we have, and to build a sense of community. We want to make it easier and clearer. So when we come together like this, which we've been doing quarterly, and probably we'll do a little bit more between now and November 3rd, we learn about organizations, and there's many of them doing really great work. Their planning, their actions, their specific actions for progressive causes and candidates. So I just had an interesting experience last night. I've committed to phoning at least Wednesday nights, and I went to do that last night. I had a different computer. I had several glitches happen immediately. But what was great is the Allies for PA team has a group of folks sitting in a Zoom room that can help. So you click and you have a problem and you go to them and they help you sort it out. So as much as I was getting frustrated, they were there and they kept with me step by step. And I'm so grateful for that. This is what we need to support each other as we go along, because sometimes it is frustrating. Sometimes we don't get immediate results.
You're muted.
Did I do that? Okay. Okay, is that all right? Can you hear me now? Okay. But by the end of that evening last night, I had talked to an 18-year-old first-time voter who was very waffling about whether he was going to vote. Well, I expressed my enthusiasm and we had a great conversation, and I felt at least that I reached him and I felt the support of the team. So tonight, we will have 5 speakers covering 4 issues, and we will hear from each one for about 10 minutes, and that will include questions and answers. So Betsy Krieger will lead us in the question and answer part after each speaker. And after all the speakers, before Heather, then we'll have a poll pop up, and then you'll have a chance to check off which of those activities and issues you want to directly participate in. If you have questions coming up as you're listening, please go to the bottom of your screen and click chat and send your questions. They can either go to everyone or to the host. Okay? One other detail, if you're not already on our mailing list, Be the Change, Be More, we won't automatically put you on there because we want to make sure you're choosing to be on there. So please sign up by going through our website, or when we send a follow-up email with a recording of this event, we'll send a link that you can also sign up. Okay, so I want to move along to hearing our speakers. The first speakers, there's 2 of them from Working America. I'm just going to give their names and who they are representing, and they will tell you more about themselves and their organization. From Working America, we have Osif Carney and Katie Gregg. So please join me in welcoming these 2 activists.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you. Betsy has done a fantastic job organizing volunteers to participate in Working America's letter writing program. So many of you may have received emails from me already. As Jennifer said, I'm Katie Gregg, with the Deputy Campaigns Director of Working America, and I have Osif Carney here with me. He's our Director of Research and Analytics. As I said, many of you are already participating in our letter writing program, but for those who aren't, just a brief overview. We are sending letters to targeted folks in battleground states with using the pandemic as a hook to intro our letters, but with the explicit purpose of increasing the importance of healthcare in the minds of these voters, in order to serve some of the progressive aims that were mentioned at the beginning of the call. So to get into the research that we've done on this project, I want to turn it over now to Osif.
Thank you, thank you. I believe Rose is the host. I do have a screen to share. If you can enable me to share a screen, that'd be really nice. But before I jump into those, I'll sort of just give an overview of the program, and then we can sort of have some visuals to go with it as well. Thanks, Katie, and yeah, yes.
Just to let you know, that capability should be available for you now.
Excellent, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let me just get that up, and then we'll get rolling. Excellent. So for starters, I'm Osif Carney. I'm the Director of Analytics here at Working America. Thank you, Katie, and good afternoon, Baltimore brothers and sisters. And thanks so much for having us on this call. As Katie mentioned, my job is to analyze if programs work or not. And a side note, a fun fact, when I came to this country, I actually came to Baltimore as the city that raised me. And I can't tell you how much it means to see folks from my hometown step up and do the work that's necessary, that's needed to be done. I'm here to talk about what is one of the most innovative programs that I've seen in the progressive movement. And it's based on a simple yet often missing concept in political communications, which is putting the voter before the vote. Like many folks around the country, I was stunned, but not really surprised on election night 2016. In early 2016, when Working America was canvassing in Ohio and Western Pennsylvania, we found that the very working class voters who chose President Obama were just the kind of folks who kind of just like what Trump had to say. The data itself, I'm an analytics guy, the data itself shows a stark and, for me, a very horrifying trend late in the cycle. There's a massive shift from voters prioritizing kitchen table issues like healthcare and retirement security to frames that are driven by fear, such as fear of immigrants and fear of community safety. In 2017, we revisited the same exact voters and talked to them. And we met a woman named Gertrude. She ended up voting for Trump in that cycle. And in our conversation, we quickly learned that she wasn't paying attention to the Trump administration's actions. When we informed her about Trump's efforts to defund LIHEAP, that's Low Income Heating Assistance Program, she literally fell back into her couch because Gertrude, her daughter, her neighbors in Ohio need that program to stay warm. We've been in touch with her since, keeping her informed about the actions of this administration so that she can make a decision on which options are best to help working people in 2020. That's just one example, but our analytics find there are millions of Gertrudes out there. The foundational data that underpins this program comes from listening to voters for the past decade. This analysis of canvas data tells us that all things equal, if everyone were a healthcare voter, progressives win by 22 points. If everyone were an immigration voters, Republicans consistently win by 14 points. Put another way, the strongest Republicans who become healthcare voters are more likely to vote for progressives than the strongest Republicans who become immigration voters on election day. Now, this is just observational data. What we're trying to do is change someone's mind because of an action that we take. And what I'll jump into is what that looks like and how we study that. The specific program that we're talking about right now reaches voters by having volunteers just like yourself write letters and share personal stories with workers, in effect increasing the salience of healthcare as a top voting issue in 2020 and moving voters to choose progressive options at the ballot box. So I know I study this all the time. Persuasion is very difficult. It's hard to imagine, and it's even possible to change someone's mind, say someone's mind living in Pittsburgh from where you're sitting right now in Baltimore. Well, turns out it is indeed possible. This is one of my favorite volunteers, my mom, Mona, who lives in Randallstown, Maryland. She shared a story about how she lost her friend to COVID in May and how hard it's been on our community. Working folks are being impacted greatly, but simply left out of the solutions. Health is going to be the #1 issue on her mind all year. She sent 283 letters and generated 14 healthcare voters who intend to make progressive vote choices up and down the ballot. So how do we know this? How do we know that we're actually winning progressive healthcare voters? We run a testing protocol where we are constantly surveying voters on what they care about, who they're voting for, the issues that drive them. We randomize voters to receive interventions, in this case, the personalized healthcare letter from volunteers like yourself. We then resurvey these voters and see how their attitudes change over time. These data allow us to find voters who move, by how much, and more importantly, focus only on the voters that we can actually impact. And we do this over and over and over again. Learn, test, repeat, learn, test, repeat. This helps us focus our efforts, telling us what works, what doesn't work, and who it works with. Now we look at the causal data. What is the actual impact of a personalized healthcare letter to a voter? Here, the analysis of the program was conducted by the leading researchers in political persuasion, Josh Kala, who's based out of Yale, and David Brockman, who's based out of Stanford. We asked the question, can we generate healthcare voters? And it turns out the answer is quite overwhelmingly yes. In particular, when we focus our efforts on constituents without a college degree and those who do not tune into cable news television, that's folks who aren't watching Fox News, CNN, or MSNBC on a regular basis. One of the consequences of this letter is that it also generates roughly 5 new voters for Joe Biden and 3.7 new voters for Democrats up and down the ballot. As I mentioned, we are constantly testing and adjusting, which is to say we can, with quite a high degree of precision, predict and prove out these treatment effects, these vote gains that of how many healthcare voters we're actually winning when it comes time to vote. And finally, there are a lot of constituents to move throughout the nation, particularly in states like Florida and Pennsylvania, and even in North Carolina, who start voting really soon. What we need from you and your networks, like all of yours across the country, is to share your stories and get writing. With that, I'll pause and thank you again. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me.
Thanks, Osif. Betsy, did you want to? Okay, you got it in the chat. Any questions?
I have a question, and that is, how sticky are these voters? In other words, if a letter hits their doorstep, do they unstick within 24 hours, 72, 2 weeks, 5 weeks? Do they stay permanently? So if I mail my letters, what is the appropriate time to mail the letters?
Absolutely. So particularly with early mail-in voting, we're encouraging to consistently be sending letters. More or less what we're finding is that the persuasion effects last roughly 2 to 4 weeks. So the treatment effect is sticky. It is sticky enough to last up to a month. So we need to consistently be sort of churning out and connecting with voters. Now, one caveat to that is this isn't the only communication they're getting. They're getting multiple layers of well-tested communication, and this is something that just helps boost it. Folks need to be in constant contact. In political communications, oftentimes what happens is it's a one-off communication. That we find doesn't work so well. We need to be in touch with folks through email, SMS, these letters, and different types of communication, so they're getting a consistent stream and consistency in information.
And I'm follow-up question. You said of this population that doesn't watch CNN, Fox, what have you. I mean, that sounds to me like the 4 people who live in a cave. And I'm sorry, of the older, more mature voters. I mean, I have not seen cable news in a very long time, but older voters tend to be on it all the time. What is the behavior with the older, not the older voters, but those who are on the cable systems?
Absolutely. So what we have found relatively consistently, particularly in this cycle, is that we are not successfully moving folks who are on cable news TV consistently. So roughly 65% of the population does not watch cable news like even once a week. We are finding that cable news viewers, particularly if folks are on Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN, they're not changing their voting behavior. They're already sort of dug in and made their decision. They're not going to change their mind because of any intervention that we're doing.
And just to follow up on that, we have about 17 million people who are in the bucket of folks that we have identified that are movable. So those people who we don't have an impact on aren't included in our list.
Okay, great. That was the follow-up on that. So we are targeting those that are possibly movable.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Cool.
Thanks.
We have a couple more questions. Katie, can you describe the letter? And someone asked, what do you mean by healthcare voter or immigration voter? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
we're
the
close to
letter
time, so-
very simply.
Oh, we'll just finish these
Okay.
questions and then we'll.
You know what?
Another minute or two, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, go
Okay.
on.
I could send the template. Betsy, I could just send the template to the participants of the call and then let OSIF talk about what a healthcare voter is versus an immigration voter
Okay, fine.
to round things out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So how we define healthcare voter and immigration voter, when someone goes to the ballot box, it is what they say their number one voting issue is that cycle. So folks, we are finding that when someone says they're a healthcare voter, when they're making their decision to vote, they're dramatically more likely to support the Democrat, vice versa for the immigration voter.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Really
both of
appreciate
you. This is really
Thanks,
helpful.
everyone.
I'm inspired.
Yeah.
it.
Really, really cool to hear the specifics of how it works and that you're really looking very specifically. Next, we're going to hear from Sylvia Gollenbeck from Allies for PA. Sylvia.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the chance to be here and talk about phone banking as a critical activity to change what we're going through. It's not an either or kind of thing because we need a mix of efforts. We need texting, we need postcards, we need letter writing for maximum impact. So I'm Sylvia Gollenbeck and I coordinate outreach efforts for Allies for PA, which is a grassroots group based in Baltimore County that has been supporting Democratic candidates in Pennsylvania and other swing states since 2018. Our goal is to flip the White House and Senate, and our strategy is to support strong down-ballot candidates in swing states who can relate to voters on tangible local issues and mobilize them to vote Democratic up and down the ticket. Since we cannot canvass, which is the most effective one-on-one voter direct contact method, we set up democracy dialers to call voters in swing states. I'll add that on a personal note, I was born and raised in Argentina and lived through the dictatorships of the late 60s and 70s. And I never thought that I would relive some of the situations I experienced there right here in the United States, but we are. So that's what drives me to do everything I can, including phone banking, to defeat Trump. Before I go any further, let me lay out the following. We often hear about the concerns people have about phone banking. For example, I don't want to intrude. I hate it when I get unwanted phone calls. I don't like talking to Republicans. Or I don't like it when people are rude to me. Or I can't deal with the technology. Or I don't want people to have my phone number. These feelings are not only very valid, they're also my own, very much my own. Now, here's what really happens when you phone bank. I don't want to intrude. Well, if people don't want to be disturbed, they don't have to pick up your call. I hate it when I get unwanted calls. Same. People don't have to answer. I don't like talking to Republicans. Well, here's the issue. Campaigns don't waste time, and we heard a little bit about this with our colleagues with working families. Campaigns don't waste time or money calling people who are totally opposed to them. If we do get an occasional Republican, it's because their voting score shows they're on the fence and might consider voting Democrat. The bottom line is that phone banks are used to clean up lists so that when it's time to get out the vote, we focus on calling the supporters. I don't like it when people are rude to me. we don't have conversations with rude people. One, because people who answer are usually nice. That's the majority. They may hang up on us, but I've done that to others. And two, because if a person is rude, we thank them for their time and immediately hang up. We don't talk to them. It's a waste of time. Or I can't deal with the technology. And I'll tell you about our trainings and hand-holding in a minute, because as Jennifer mentioned, there are glitches. But we handle them as they arise, and also because, you know, we can think about learning how to phone bank as a new skill to help defeat Trump. I don't want to have my phone number given to other people. People don't have your phone number. We use either an auto dialer that uses its own phone number or a manual dialer for which you can use a Google Voice number and not your own. The bottom line is that when otherwise reticent people like me realize that talking for 3 minutes with an appreciative voter or 10 seconds to thank the occasional grumpy one who hangs up, it becomes clear that it's not only very rewarding, it's also that we realize that we are tougher than we think. And no phone banking discomfort compares to 4 more years of Trump. Nothing is as terrifying as 4 more years of Trump. And come November 4th, you want to be able to tell yourself that you gave it your absolute all to defeat him, even learning how to phone bank. So with that on the table, we need to remember that phone banking is the next best way after canvassing to make direct contact with voters, clean lists, identify supporters, and getting them to vote. And it works at scale. In other words, for an individual caller, it feels like you get to actually talk to very few people. But the value of phone banking is measured across tens of thousands of dials. That's why we need hundreds of volunteers. For example, yesterday, as Jennifer was on the call, and I recognized several friendly faces, we had 40 volunteers. The auto dialer dialed 10,000 numbers, and we made 325 contacts. With a manual dialer, it works at a different scale because we are the ones calling each number, hanging up when there's nobody home, and then dialing the next one. But the rate of contact is about 10%, and each one is invaluable. Now, how does democracy dialers work? On Wednesdays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., we call voters in Pennsylvania, and on Sundays, we call from 6 p.m. to voters in other swing states. Right now, we're calling voters in North Carolina. In every case, we call for candidates we've researched very thoroughly and whose campaigns are very responsive. So we work directly with the campaign manager to respond to our feedback and even modify scripts as we go along, and also deal on the spot with any tech glitches. In Pennsylvania, we're calling voters in Dauphin County for George Scott, who is running for the state Senate, and state house candidates that rotate every week between Brittany Rodas, Lindsey Drew, and Patti Smith, all very strong candidates in districts that Trump won by a very, very low margin. Rodas' district, for example, went to Trump for a little over 500 votes. And in North Carolina, we're very excited about this candidate, we're calling for Dr. Virginia Cox Doherty, who's running for a House seat in a majority Black rural district that doesn't get much attention or resources from the national Biden campaign. She's a former teacher with very deep roots in the community, daughter of sharecroppers, and we think she will get out the vote among low turnout voters for her as well as for the national candidates. We meet on Zoom so we can feel we're not making calls on our own, and we know how important support is. And also because not only do we offer multiple tech trainings every week ahead of each session, but also during each session. Lots and lots of assistance and support at every step. When you sign on to be a democracy dialer, you have access to a secure page with everything you could possibly need ahead of time: scripts, talking points, video tutorials, training schedules, resources, everything. And you receive reminders with all the links or everything you can possibly want to have to feel comfortable making calls. Or you can sign up for a particular party line, a particular date, and you will receive the reminders and the scripts, everything ahead of time as well. So many people have said, and they've told us in the chat or afterwards, I said I'd never phone back, and here I am. It was actually fun, and I'll be back next week. So please sign up through the links that will be shared. Also email me with any questions and give it a try. I can tell you that it feels pretty good to imagine the possibility of Trump re-elected and redirecting that rage into dialing. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great.
Does anyone have any questions?
Sylvia, I have a question. This is Lori. Could you explain to the group why you're working at the state level as opposed to calling for Biden, for example?
Yes, yes. We decided from the beginning that we would focus on down ballot campaigns because people find it very familiar to understand, well, how is this candidate going to address my local issues in my district, in my neighborhood? Also because those candidates at the legislature level can use a lot of help in terms of name recognition. And probably most important also because as we can draw people out to vote Democrat for down ballot candidates, that will surface up and they most likely will vote Democrat up and down the ticket. Not necessarily the other way around, but moving from the bottom up is an effective strategy to get Democrat votes up and down.
Wow.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Hi, this is Bev Jackson. I've been working with you guys for the past month. And
I know.
I know.
I recognize you. Yes, Bev.
It's been so positive, but this is a little bit in my wheelhouse because I'm quite comfortable on the phone. But I did get my first creepy response, just one creepy response last night. He was definitely a Trumper.
Yes.
I mean, he had a real Darth Vader voice. But the training, I just want everybody to know, the training is impeccable from this group. The training is just, if you have any reluctance with technology, they will walk you through every step of the way. I'm real impressed with the training and the support. In North Carolina, those calls last week were really positive and rewarding.
Yes. Thank you, Bev. Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Also, there's that Southern culture, that relationship, the conversations are just very rewarding. Thank you, Bev. Yes.
Great.
So happy to have you on our calls.
Right. So are we ready to move on, or is there another question, Betsy?
People are asking how you decide which volunteer activity to do, and you're going to hear two more of them. The answer really is the best volunteer activity to do is the one that you will do and will stick with.
Or two.
Yeah, and in these last 2 months, do as many as you can. I feel like this is the time when you really, every spare minute, really we should be devoting to this. So, you know, we're giving you, you know, 4, just not to say that, you know, there's nothing else good happening. There are plenty of good things happening, but we're giving you, you know, 4 options that are all great, and you know, choose as many as you can and do the ones you'll stick with. That's the best answer I can give.
Great answer. Great answer. Yeah, just trust yourself and trust your instinct, and also talking to each other. And I mean, just seeing what other people are doing. They're sharing in the chat. People doing postcards and calling.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's really encouraging. I feel inspired just having this. So thank you. Thank you very much, Sylvia. That was so clear and wonderful. Next up, Laurie Minerby from Nope. Let's hear about Nope.
Yep, I had to unmute myself. And if the tech person could give me the capability to share screen, I won't do it right away, but I will be. So
yeah,
thank you.
Lori, that's available for you.
Thank you very much. So hi, everybody. I'm Lori Minerby. I'm one of three co-leaders of the fundraising effort for Nope Neighbors out of DC. We are one of many grassroots political groups that formed after after that horrible election when we were all trying to figure out what to do with ourselves. I don't know if you remember hearing about the rainbow flags that got flown in a Northwest DC neighborhood that Mike Pence was living in before the vice president's mansion opened up, but that was the precursor to our group. That was a listserv of 300 people, which then turned into a mailing list of 1,000. And now we have a core group of 400 active members and donors. We have raised, I'm going to be speaking mostly about fundraising because that's my wheelhouse, but we also do phone banking. We're working in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. And we also do letter writing. We have our democracy writers and we have text bankers, and we are so busy, it's quite amazing. I sometimes don't know everything that's going on. We have raised almost $1 million since 2017 for 9 organizations and 74 candidates, 29 state candidates, 30 US House and 15 US Senate. And I'm really hearing a theme tonight, and that is up and down the ballot. And I'm going to agree with everyone else who came before, which is when you start at the grassroots level in neighborhoods where people know their local issues and they vote Democratic, they tend to vote Democratic up the ballot. So we fundraise up and down the ballot. We are now at the tail end of the year. We're a little bit closer to the election, and we are also fundraising to flip the Senate. And we are also fundraising with organizations who will enfranchise voters and protect the vote. So in 2020, we have had one focused fundraising campaign per month, every single month. And we have a cadre of donors. We call ourselves the Giving Circle. It's a very informal kind of alliance. People pledge to make a certain donation monthly, and they have donated monthly every month to each one of our campaigns. Now that we only have 2 months to go, if you were to pledge today, it would be a pretty short pledge, but that's okay. But what happens in the Giving Circle is you find as a community of donors, you can have a much bigger impact when you're all donating in the same direction than any one of us can have alone by going randomly and picking a candidate and donating to someone that we like. We do think that we help Biden and Harris by supporting down ballot races. But, and I want to say about Nope also, we are 100% volunteer. We are all volunteer. We have no overhead. We don't even have a bank account. Every single dollar that's donated to one of our campaigns goes directly to the candidates via an ActBlue link. And it's a custom ActBlue link. I'm going to show you 3 of them tonight for the 3 campaigns that are open until the end of the campaign season and possibly till the end of 2020. And you'll see what they look like. With one click, you donate to an assortment of candidates, or in the case of Nope for the Vote, for a group of organizations. So what does Nope do? How do we contribute? What value do you get from us? Well, my colleague, Larry Buck on the fundraising team always says, we do the research so you don't have to. And we do the research. We follow the polls. We update our numbers many times a month. And we try to figure out where each of our donation dollars will have the greatest impact. So why should you not just give to a candidate that you like? Oh, by the way, I should mention, we are not fundraising for Biden-Harris. Again, up and down the ballot. My dollars, I know, will go much farther in a local race, in a $50,000, $100,000 race, or in a U.S. House race of $50 or $100 or $300,000 than in a presidential race of $1 billion. So I will give to Biden, and I already have, and I will give more. But Nope as an advisory group creating these campaigns is going to figure out a mix of candidates where we get the best bang for our donation buck, where we can have the greatest impact. So how does NOPE pick candidates to support? I'm going to go through this really fast, so bear with me. This is a data chart that shows the electoral college race, because really all of us, what we want to do is get rid of Trump, right? So if we're supporting down ballot races for the US House, the Senate, or legislative races, we want to do it in states where we can have an impact. So how do we figure that out? Here are the states. These are what I would call lean Democrat states, because they have, Biden has a 6% to a 2% advantage. He's ahead of the unmentionable. These states are toss-up states. We really don't know which way they're going to go. As you can see, in Arizona, Biden has a 2% advantage. North Carolina, it's neck and neck. In Georgia, he's a little bit behind. I'm not mentioning Maine because this is just one district. And these states down here, these are red states. So if we were going to support races in these states, for example, like Amy McGrath in Kentucky, we love Amy. I've given money to Amy, but we can't recommend that that's a good investment. And when we suggest a slate of candidates to donate to, we are really suggesting a slate that you can invest in for democracy. So the assumption here is that Biden has, and this is polling data, this is average polling data. The assumption is Biden has 218 electoral votes locked up, that those are in his pocket, and that the election is close in 12 states. That's these 12 right here, these 12 on this list. So if we take that 218 and then Biden wins Michigan, he gets 16 additional electoral votes, and that brings his total to 234. If he then wins New Hampshire, he gets 4 more, which brings his total to 238. And on down until Pennsylvania, which, God willing, if he wins it, and you're all working there, which is great, we are too, if he gets those 20 electoral votes, bingo, we're over 270, game over, we win. So what is NOPE's strategy? We were talking about a strategy, and what is NOPE's strategy? Our first strategy is to make sure we win these states. They are lean Democrat states. It's likely that we will win them. We don't want any mistakes to happen. We want to win them. So we are supporting down ballot candidates in state legislative races, in House races, and now that we're at the end of the line here, also Senate races. We are supporting them in these states because we want to win them. Now, again, because we're, polls are looking good here, and we feel we can take a little bit more of a stretch, we are also supporting some candidates, not in this one district, well, in Maine, yes. And we have one candidate we are supporting in Iowa. So let me very quickly, 10 minutes is not a lot, but these are the 3 races, these are the 3 fundraising campaigns that are open with NOPE today and will be until the end of the campaign or 2020. This is our Defend Our House in Battleground States. We just launched this, and we are having a big meeting on Monday to which you are all invited. One of our candidates, Hiral Tiperneni, will be speaking to us among some other speakers. So these are the 10 candidates. You can read them better here. We have 2 House candidates in Arizona, 2 in Florida, 1 in Minnesota, 2 North Carolina, 2 Pennsylvania, and 1 Wisconsin. Again, if I flip back to that other chart, you would see those are the states. Plus, these are good candidates. Moving to our Flip the Senate slate, and you up with Be the Change, you should be familiar with this because you have donated to this. So our goal here is to raise $200,000 for these Senate candidates. The thermometer shows almost 165,000. Well, 11,000 more. The total is actually greater because 11,000 more came from Be the Change. So applause to you. These are the candidates. We just added John Ossoff in Georgia. Again, that was the reach. You saw that. That's a reach, but he's doing well. Teresa Greenfield in Iowa, also a reach. Sarah Gideon in Maine, because Susan Collins is still up there being very concerned. She should be so concerned. Gary Peters is defending his seat in Michigan. Tina Smith in Minnesota. Steve Bullock is really a reach, but we think he might be able to do it in Montana. And Cal Cunningham in North Carolina. Again, these are the states with these few reaches that we are fundraising for. So we've seen the House races, the Senate races. This is Nope for the Vote, which is a new campaign. We launched it recently, but we're already at almost $50,000 because people are worried about the sanctity of the vote. They are worried about disenfranchisement and voter fraud and voter suppression. So I need to make a point here very, very quickly. I can do it in 3 charts.
Take your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Heather's a few minutes late, so we
okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Trump's margin of victory in 2016. I'm going to call it the margin of loss for Democrats. Okay. Trump won by 10,000 votes in Michigan, 44,000 in Pennsylvania. You know this. And 22,000 in Wisconsin. The total was 77,744 votes in a country of 330 million people. But let's look at this further. In the same areas, here's those votes. In those same states, what was the estimated number of registered likely Democratic voters who did not vote in 2016? These are largely people of color, unmarried women, and youth. In Michigan, it was almost 700,000 people. In Pennsylvania, 750,000 people. And in Wisconsin, 250,000 people. Now, those registered voters could have easily sopped up the loss. They could have done it, but they didn't vote. But let's look at one more thing. Let's look at the estimated number of unregistered likely Democratic voters. Again, people of color, unmarried women, and youth in 2016. So here's that's that margin of loss. These are the registered voters who didn't vote. These are potential Democratic voters, likely Democratic voters who didn't register and didn't vote. You now have 2 million in Michigan. You had 2.7 million in Pennsylvania, and you had 1 million in Wisconsin. So I don't need to say more about that. I think you probably makes the issue clear. So NOPE has decided to invest, and I will say this is an investment, in community organizing groups in low propensity states and in competitive states who community build and build relationships in these communities and educate voters, because education is the best antidote to voter suppression. They register voters, they get out the vote, and this year they're also working to complete the census. And also these groups create jobs because they hire canvassers and assign them a particular area in the community that they are responsible for in building relationships in. So who are these groups? We have 4 groups, and I'm going to take them in order by state. Their logos are here. We have Lucha in Arizona. Again, we're talking about these competitive states, right? We're still in our 12 competitive state area. Lucha, which stands for Living United for Change in Arizona.
And we do need to kind of wrap it up in the next few minutes, Lori.
Okay, I'm going to whip through it. Block. Okay. I'm sorry, this is Advanced Carolina. Block, which is out of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. And 1PA, which I know all of you are familiar with. So that's enfranchising voters. What about preventing disenfranchisement? Well, we're also supporting Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight and a group you may not have heard of, which is Democracy Docket. This was founded by Mark Elias, who was the attorney of record for Hillary in 2016 and John Kerry in 2004. He represents the DNC. And what he is doing is he is challenging voter suppression nationwide, let's look at Texas real briefly.
Mm.
Filing lawsuits nationwide to protect voters.
Mm.
So back to our, I'm just going to give you very quickly, when you donate or if you choose to donate to any of these campaigns, you will log on, you will click on the Act Blue link, and one donation, if you choose to donate, I don't know, let's be optimistic, you're donating $5,000 today, that donation will be divided equally among all the groups. Oh, and I got locked out. Well, anyway, what we want to do is we want to prevent this situation.
Mm. Wow.
So I am going to be giving you links to all these campaigns. I will invite you. By the way, Mark Elias is speaking on Monday as well. So we have Haral Tiperneni and we have Mark Elias both on Monday. You're all invited. You'll get the link to sign up and you'll have links to all of these campaigns and you'll have my email address. Feel free to contact me directly. Thank you very much for your time and we love partnering with you, Be the Change.
Thank you so much, Lori.
Does anyone have any questions for Lori?
I talk too fast.
Oh, you were great. Clear. So clear. Great. Well, thank you so much, Lori. It's very inspiring. I just have to say that you don't have to have you don't have to have a lot of money to be part of this giving circle. You can just decide I can contribute this much each month and then just be part of it. The research is impressive. The vetting, it's just so well thought out. It's really comforting to hear that this is going on and the amount of money that you've been raising is extraordinary. So we can just carry on from here and keep at it.
And one quick thing, wherever you donate, whether it's with us or elsewhere, the time to do it is now. Right. Don't wait, because this is when campaigns need the money. They're hiring. This is it right now. So
okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And I do have one question that is for, are any groups targeting young people, college students, etc.? Anyone who knows can answer that question.
Well, Next Gen America has been working very hard with college students. Field Team 6 is a group that's registering college students. They got a list of over 2 million college students, and they're texting and phone calling.
Wow.
So there's a lot of outreach to college students. They're probably a little bit easier to find because they're in some databases in different places.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So now we're ready for Lori Welsh.
Just mouthing off.
Yes, we canvas.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I am so delighted to have followed those 3 groups, because if anybody asks me, I don't know where to give money, I say, come to a NOPE call and give through NOPE. I don't know how to make phone calls. I say, go to Allies for PA. And I love Working America. I've been following them for a decade, and they do amazing work with what our East Coders might think are, the blue collar Trump voters in Ohio, but they do amazing work. So what I want to tell you about is some other activities in Pennsylvania. We have one project, it's called the Precinct Partnership Program. And I spoke at it at your last meeting, so many of you have heard about it before. And then I just wanted to show you one slide at the end about what you can do to help protect the vote in Pennsylvania. And that you can sign up now to work on election day, and you can also help with voter hotlines. So these are kind of activities for people who, even though Sylvia would teach you how to phone bank, there are some people who are just never going to phone bank. So the Precinct Project is for people who are willing to learn how to text using a not very complicated system. But I would say if you can get yourself to phone bank, you should be doing that. But this is really, because this is much smaller, we're going to be reaching fewer people, but it's complementary. And actually we're working with a lot of the same campaigns that Sylvia mentioned that are phone banking for. So the idea is you as a volunteer would partner with the specific precinct in Pennsylvania and text them on a regular basis, probably every other week between now and the election, so that you could have the potential to form a trusted relationship with those voters. There's a lot of data that if someone that you trust tells you to vote, it's about a 15% movement, as opposed to phone banking is 2.8. Now, I don't know that I would call this a relationship. It's not really necessarily being a friend, but we're giving it a try. And now that there's been so much concern about the post office and about where ballots are going to be, there are lots of lawsuits in Pennsylvania that are delaying the dates. This is, I think, more important because voters have been asking us, like, when will I get my ballot? And we can send them to the right website. So we're helping them with information. We've set it up to be pretty simple for the volunteers because we have a tech team that does a lot of the background work for sending the texts. You have to be able to be part of the team on Slack. Oh, I think I have a slide for that. Yeah, we do a lot of the communication on Slack because at this point we have about 100 volunteers and it's not really possible to coordinate them all by email. Prompt.io is our texting program, and of course everybody knows how to use Zoom and Google Docs. We're really just getting going. So there's a couple campaigns that haven't started yet and 3 or 4 that are working. Oh, and what I wanted to mention, I should have mentioned at the beginning, we're asking the campaigns to give us precincts that they're, for one reason or another, not really reaching out to. They're low propensity voters who they don't usually get with phone calls, or it's very rural. So even when they're going to be doing literature drops, they're not going to have volunteers spend the time to drive in these very rural districts. And we're reaching out only to Democrats. It's from the Vote Builder database, and it's the Democrats that have cell phones, so we can text them. Doesn't mean they're not Trump supporters, but we're reaching out to Democrats. So a volunteer could be reaching out to 300 or 500 people, of whom about 15% may respond. And as Sylvia described, when we're doing the texting, we're trying to do it in Slack, but we may be doing it in Zoom to have a question and answer session going on, because a lot of people respond right away to the text and they might say, I'm definitely voting in person. Is my polling place going to be open? Or questions like that, where we're encouraging them to vote by mail. So we're doing it in partnership with Turn PA Blue, which is a wonderful nonprofit organization working at the state level in Pennsylvania. They haven't done this before, so maybe we're going to work out all the bugs and then we can use it again effectively in 2022 when we have to get these state candidates reelected again. Then the last thing I wanted to mention is these opportunities for voter protection in Pennsylvania. So there's currently a voter assistance hotline that's running now. And when you're on the phone, if people have questions, you can direct them there. Then the Pennsylvania Democrats are running phone banks to recruit people for election day, either to be election judges or poll observers. And then you yourself can be a poll observer. Even if you don't live in Pennsylvania, you can be a poll observer outside the polls. And then there's a job, if people want it, to be a canvass observer, which means you're present when the ballots are being counted. And you take notes, and if a voter gets rejected for some reason, then you have a note on that and the party can get in touch with them and have them cure their ballot. That's probably not it's a big commitment, because you would have a polling place and you'd have to be there as long as they're counting the ballots. But for people who would find that really fascinating, you're welcome, even though you don't live in Pennsylvania. And then same with attorneys. They really want attorneys to be canvass observers or poll observers. There's no early voting in Pennsylvania, so it's only on election day at the polls, but the canvass observers would be going on after the election. So there's a lot of opportunity to be, when we're no longer making phone calls or texting people or sending all the postcards and letters are done. If everybody who's been volunteering shows up in Pennsylvania to be a poll observer, it could be a total game changer. We don't know what it's going to be like. There may be Republicans out there trying to discourage people from putting their ballots in the drop boxes. We don't know. And I think we need a team of thousands and thousands of people, and I'll be there. It's going to be fun. So I'm going to make sure Betsy has all the information, including these voter protection actions, so that you can sign up now to just be in touch, and they will contact you when they need voters or volunteers. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the precinct project. It's kind of complicated to go through it quickly, but I think it would just be if you're interested in working every week to text these low propensity voters in Pennsylvania, it's a good project. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. Time for a question or two, and then we have Heather, and we have a poll, and then we have Heather Booth soon. Any particular question, Betsy?
Anyone have questions for Laurie? I just wanted to add that anyone on this call who's an attorney, you're especially needed, or a law student. The rest of us are important too, but attorneys are especially needed.
Great. This is another really good opportunity, really interesting, powerful. So the question is, what's the website? Do you have the website that you can post before the end of this session?
Yeah, Laurie, if you could post that, that's great.
I'll post that for signing up. I'll do that definitely.
So let's put up the whole, Jennifer, did you just say that Heather is here?
Yes, Heather is here.
Yay, that's great.
Yeah,
okay, can you put up the
just
poll?
do a poll really quick, right?
Yeah, just put up the poll.
Put a poll so you can, don't feel, you can check them all off if you want to be hearing from all these folks. I'm going to personally do that myself. And then you can really, it should be up there now, and you can just take a minute.
Yeah, people have been asking how they get involved, how they know how to do this, and this is the answer. As soon as you fill this out, we will get back to you with information about how to get involved. And we're at the end, so this is a time to really do everything we can.
It's the stretch. We're at the stretch now. Okay.
While this is up, do you want to introduce Heather? So
yes, you all can be filling out your poll, and I will introduce Heather. I just want to say welcome to Heather. We showed the trailer of your incredible film, which I've also seen. Lovely. And we're really grateful that you were able to join us tonight. So let me just give a little intro, and then maybe that'll fit with when the poll is done. So Heather Booth has been an organizer for civil rights, women's rights, immigration reform, voting rights, and more for over 50 years. She was part of Freedom Summer in 1964 and directed the NAACP National Voter Fund. She was the founding director and now chairs the board of Midwest Academy, the training center for organizers. She has worked for the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, yay, and worked on issues of concern to older Americans. She was the director of the Democratic National Committee's training academies and has directed and advised many Democratic election campaigns. Heather, thank you so much for being here, and please go ahead.
And I'm so glad to be with you, Jennifer. When I've heard about you, I feel like we are sisters in the movement, sisters in struggle together for many years. And I was particularly glad to come because when Betsy Krieger asks me to come to do something, I want to be there. Maybe we all feel that way. She's been a leader in the movement. But I guess everyone who's on this call, I can't see all of you, but you are the activists, you are the organizers, you are the movement builders, you are the progressives who make change happen. You've made so much of the promise of this moment. And there is a lot of promise in this moment. It's actually promise, I think, that's even made it possible for us to realize that we can have the election of people who are caring leadership, like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This was the promise of the progressive movement that drove the fight for 15 or one fair wage for equality for tipped workers or or for the dreamers, or recognizing that climate should be addressed based on science and not based on fantasy. All of these are outgrowths of a progressive movement of people who have fought for these for years. And it's particularly important now because it's at a time of such peril. Almost everything we fought for me, I mean, I started when I was a young teenager. I was probably 13 years old when I went to my first civil rights demonstration. And by the way, behind me is a picture of me at 18 with Fannie Lou Hamer in Mississippi in Freedom Summer in 1964. And you probably know of Fannie Lou Hamer, a great civil rights icon and leader. And because people organized within a year of real terror, there was a Voting Rights Act. But all of those victories, voting rights, women's rights, climate, democracy itself, it's all in peril. I actually swore I would never go into another campaign. I'll be 75 just weeks after this election. And I decided to go into this campaign because everything we fought for is in jeopardy. And you're the people who've been part of that struggle, and you're the people who continue that struggle. And you make the change we need possible. So I'm both here to thank you and to join you in partnership for the next step. I'll tell you a little bit about where the campaign is now and how to engage there. I see you're already engaged with a website, with voter protection, and with other things, and I'm so glad to hear about that. In the campaign, there are 17 battleground states. There's a first tier: Arizona, Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And it's the highest priority. If we stop Trump there, it will be a blowout. And then also, we have staff in Nevada, Colorado, Texas, Nebraska for the 2nd District, Minnesota, Iowa, Ohio, Maine, New Hampshire, Georgia, and Virginia. I'm in a department with about 30 coalitions, we call them. Others might call it constituencies. I run the coalitions for seniors and for progressives. I joke because I'm a senior progressive, but you can be one or the other and not all combined. And it's also, there's African American, Latino, youth, LGBTQ, faiths, and many Muslim, many other Jewish, many other constituency efforts. There now are less than 2 months for the election. It may seem very short. It may seem very long because it will be very intense, but it's the time we need to do the work. The first stage of the campaign was doing national outreach. Now we're in a stage of driving issues into the states. We need your help as volunteers for phone banks, for calling, for doing the social media, for elevating these issues and amplifying the messages of the campaign. If you want to get our campaign messages, we have updates every morning and evening in the Progressive Coalition, and you can go to joebiden.com/coalitions and then click on Progressive. And you'll get into our phone bank list, but you'll also get our morning and evening updates. If you don't want the updates, you can text progress to 30330. And you'll also be put into the phone bank. And the name of the campaign, I see a text is, I'm working for the Biden-Harris campaign. But we're also part of a coordinated campaign effort working up and down the ballot. It all matters. The third stage of the campaign we call GOTVBM. Now, you all know about GOTV, get out the vote, or get out our vote. Well, the VBM is vote by mail, but it's also vote in ways that are easy, convenient, and flexible. And that's how we describe it. We found out, by the way, that when you say voting by mail is safe and secure, people wonder, gee, is it safe and secure? But if you say it's easy, convenient, and flexible, and for seniors, we can vote at home, it's more attractive. You can go to a website, iwillvote.com. That also may be worth putting in the chat. And that will tell you not only are you registered, but what the rules are, what the dates are there drop boxes, where they are, and what the preferred kind of voting is for your state. There's some states where it's so hard to vote by mail. We're really encouraging drop boxes. In other places, like Florida, it's actually easier to vote by mail, and we're encouraging vote by mail in many places. We do want to say the post office can be safe, convenient, and flexible, and encourage people especially to vote early, So that's really the broad overview of the campaign. I welcome a little time for some questions. And what I just say is that you are organizers, you are leaders, you are movement builders, and you know that when we organize, that's when we can win, but we have to organize. The power of the people can sweep Trump from office and elect Joe Biden the next president of the United States and Kamala Harris as vice president. The opposition will do everything they can to suppress and depress our vote and depress us. We need to keep on organizing. The only way they'll win is by depressing and dividing us and suppressing the vote. But our answer sometimes, I think, is captured in an anthem that I had heard from in the South African freedom fight against apartheid. The higher they build the obstacles, the taller we will grow. We'll do everything in our power to tear down those obstacles, and where they exist, we'll overcome them. If they slow the mails, we'll cast our ballots early. If they limit the early polling locations, we'll seek them out. If they limit the number of voting machines, we'll stand in line and cast our votes. We will not be deterred, because our lives and the future of our country, of democracy, and even the future of a better world are at stake. When we organize, we have changed this world, and we can change this world. I look forward to being your partner in this struggle. And if we do the work of celebrating our victories together.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you so much.
We have one question from Charlie asking you, how will President Biden use the tax system and financial regulation to stop the ever worsening income and wealth inequality? How will he help raise workers' standards of living?
You know, I just heard a briefing today, and in the next short period of time, I'm not sure what day or week, it could even be next week, but it's fairly soon, there will be statements about the tax policy that even build on what he said so far. But he will come out for, let me see if I even have the notes from that of exactly what was being proposed. He certainly is for dealing with the incredible wealth inequality, and one key element is against those who are profiteering on other people's misery. He is for helping the tax situation of working families and those, I think it's under $400,000 a year. He's saying, I think there will not be a tax increase on those at a lower, but the wealthiest in the society, there will be, he will address the tax inequality in those areas. By the way, I worked for the Americans for Tax, I don't remember the name, it's Frank Clementi's group, and I was the field director when we fought against the tax breaks for the millionaires and billionaires, and would always say that the tax breaks that Trump put through for the millionaires and billionaires, in fact, could jeopardize education, Medicare, and Social Security. And it's those very policies, I know that is the framework that Joe Biden also believes.
I have a question. Can I talk?
Yep.
Okay. I think you meant Americans for Tax Reform. My question, Heather, is she on?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't, oh, I see.
It's funny
The question is,
if you're in the,
besides taxes, I've been feeling very down because so many people don't have a 401k or any type of savings. I read an article I got on my phone today from Apple about the income wealth gap is almost beyond repair. Is there anything that can be done that way?
well, for one thing is you also can ensure that people make a decent living and that they have a decent standard of living and decent incomes. This has just been Labor Day, and Joe Biden is proud of standing with unions and for decent wages. He is for one fair wage. He's not for the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers.
There has to be a retirement with it. There has to be something
and
to
for
grow
retirement.
wealth.
He is
heartbreaking.
And also, not only is he for preserving Social Security, he is for increasing Social Security. And there's something called the CPIE, so that the cost of living will also be, under Joe Biden, will be revised to meet the particular needs that seniors have, where we have additional costs around medications. And it's now not included in the family bucket that's usually designed to determine the cost of living increases. So he's not only for securing Social Security, he's for improving it.
But it has to be for young people, home ownership, retirement plans, savings plans. The article I read today is just pure heartbreaking.
So Roberta,
yes,
I think what you've just described are policies that Joe Biden is also promoting.
I'm sure.
And there's,
if you go to his,
thanks for raising it, Roberta. If you go to his website of joebiden.com, there are many categories of policies and they all start to fit together, but he addresses them for young people, for older people, and even for people in the prime of life.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roberta.
You're welcome.
Betsy, you have more questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One person is asking what you would recommend for teens who aren't old enough yet to get involved in the election. And another question is, how are we going to be dealing with white supremacy? And Heather, if you don't mind, we're going to put a poll up while you're, it's not a request to get involved while you're speaking, so that people will sign up for these various things that we're offering.
Oh, that's great. One of the things I'd start on the white supremacy question, I was actually just looking for the quote right now. But Joe Biden has spoken out against systemic racism in a way that I don't recall any other president speaking out on it. And he also went to meet with the family, with the Blake family in Kenosha, and spoke, both he and Jill called them right after that terrible shooting, whereas Trump called for greater reinforcements for the police and never really expressed compassion. So that it's just a sea change of direction. And also that Joe Biden went to Kenosha to meet with the family in a private meeting to respect them. So I'm looking for, let's see, I think I have I thought I could find his quote on white supremacy, on fighting systemic racism. But I know that that is part of the core of what he believes and what he's promoting, to stand for true equality and not just superficial changes, but those that address the systemic causes. The first question, there was a different one. Tell me what that was about.
That was, how would you involve teens?
Oh, on teams. You know, in my division, there's a unit, someone else does students, and there's a youth position. They're both there. My own assistant, by the way, is a sophomore in college. And so people can be involved in at any age. Even my grandkids went out and they were holding signs. So they were socially distanced. But people can be, even if you can't vote, you still can talk to others. If you're on social media, you can share messages, and anyone can phone bank. We do need you. You could text progress to 30330 and join the phone bank, join the volunteer corps, whether you're like me, nearly 75, or whether you're 17. We need you at all ages, and this will be America that is that's inclusive of all ages.
Great. Wow.
And can you tell us a little about, someone's asking about Biden's COVID plan, how he will deal with COVID on day one?
You know, by the way, I'm not the policy person.
Right.
I'm the organizing person.
Yes.
So I do have some policy notes here, and I was looking for them.
Well, and
what I do know is that we are approaching a terrible date. The date when almost 200,000 in the United States will have died. Yeah. I was told earlier in the day that nearly 1,000 died today. I know that around that time, there will be a much further discussion of the policy, a much more fulsome discussion of the policy that he has developed. What I do know is that on his staff, amongst his closest advisors, are people who have led responses to other serious health crises, and that he had worked on, and the people who designed the response to Ebola. It was a science-based response, and it had every aspect of the analysis of the problem, the development of treatment, the development of cures, and the development of also contact tracing, so that it's not just one element. And unlike Trump, he also says that he is responsible to providing the leadership that the country needs now, and doesn't say it's not up to him, you're on your own. Under a Joe Biden and Kamala Harris administration, we won't be on our own because we are all in it together.
Yeah. I think there's an important question here about coordination of groups that someone has posed. Heather, maybe you can address that because you're the ultimate organizer. Whoops, wait a minute.
Well, the groups are working together. First of all, in our coalitions division, as I said, there are about 30 different units.
Great. So visiting your website would be helpful for people to understand and see how that works then.
Yes, if you go to the joebiden.com.
Great, thank you.
And actually, when I said, if you go to joebiden.com/coalitions, you'll see there are many coalitions. You may want to sign up for more than one. Some of the information is the same, but some of it's unique. I just got off of another call where I was a moderator on an intergenerational discussion amongst women. And so it was a women's discussion, but it was also a progressive discussion. And amongst the people there, Dolores Huerta was there, and also a young woman from Menugian, who's the youngest representative in the Michigan House of Delegates, Tina Chan, who had served, and there were a number of remarkable women, both young and older. So women, progressives, youth,
and what was
seniors.
that? What was that meeting?
What did you say?
I'm sorry, what was that? Who gathered?
Oh, this was sponsored by the Biden campaign.
I see.
Biden-Harris campaign. So the groups are all working together, and we are a very high level of collaboration.
Cool, wonderful.
There are actually several events coming up I'll tell you about. On September 13th, it's Grandparents' Day. I see some of you are of my generation. And we'll be having an event at 2 o'clock and we'll celebrate grandparents and grandchildren. And then we'll lead into a seniors phone bank where we are encouraging both grandparents and grandchildren, intergenerational, to be part of a seniors phone bank. And a phone bank we were calling senior citizens, that we're asking grandchildren and grandparents to all be part of it. And I can send that note to Betsy, and she can share it with all of you about how to be part of it. And then on September 17th, we have a progressives event, and that's just before Joe Biden will be at a town hall that starts at 8 p.m. on CNN. And so this will be 7:30 to 8. And again, we can share that information with Betsy.
Yeah, great.
Or with you, Jennifer. I had Betsy's email. If you,
that's fine.
Whoever,
send it to Betsy, that's fine.
But it's an embodiment of how young and old, women and men, different races, religions, ethnicities, we're all working together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow.
So one other question is how are votes from nursing homes going to be collected now with, with the pandemic? So if you could answer that, that would be great, if you know.
It's it is a dilemma, and nursing homes often used to be voting sites, and they won't be anymore. So what we're recommending is that organizations that care about the issue contact the government agencies in the states who deal with the elderly, because even across party lines, they need to pay attention to this. And so that when they are engaged, they are setting up systems for working on nursing homes, senior housing, and other senior living arrangements. One thing we also are doing just within the campaign, we're also contacting where we know that there are some places where there have been lead contacts for our Democratic leadership within, say, senior housing. But there also are rules within the government facilities that makes the electioneering within it complicated. So it's really mostly a question of getting information to senior citizens about how to vote. And again, the messaging that we really want to encourage is that it is convenient, flexible, and easy.
Right.
Betsy? Betsy, this is Bev. I worked in a nursing home for quite a while before retiring, and the standard procedure on any election was absentee ballot. And there's a person assigned on staff that oversees that, and is to go to every resident to help them request the absentee ballot. So that's really not shouldn't change too much for people that are in nursing homes and incapable of, that don't have the mobility to get out. But I had something for Heather about Social Security, because this bogus payroll tax cut that 45 has put in, it's bogus, and I'm concerned that it's not being called defunding Social Security. And I would like to see the Democrats kind of take that defund the police theme and throw it on Trump. Trying to defund. He's coming in the back door here, and it's just a premonition of, if he were to be reelected, this is the wet dream for the Republicans. I mean, seriously. And it has me so concerned, because I think a lot of people don't understand this payroll tax cut.
And Bev, I'm so glad you raised it. The Vice President Biden has spoken out on this repeatedly. And there are ads on it that he's also taken out that you may not see the ads because you're in Maryland, but it would be shown within these battleground states. And there's an ad specifically on this that I know was shown in Florida and was shown and also pressed for the Villages in the largest, I think it's the largest senior housing in the country. That in the name of saying that he's providing a tax break, what it is doing, Bev, you are so right. It would undermine the system of Social Security because the Republicans have wanted to get rid of Social Security since it was started.
Yeah.
It's one of the few things that kept senior citizens out of poverty. And as I said, Joe Biden will not only preserve Social Security, but will improve it.
Can I ask, isn't the reality that the Social Security tax cut, these individuals are going to have to repay that? It only goes through December, the end of this year. And then next year, it's a deferral. They're going to have to pay this in the next calendar year.
Yeah, exactly.
And there also is the threat that he would make it permanent.
Oh, I understand that. But also,
yes.
I mean, in reality, it obviously, this is a really interesting discussion about what the plan will be to save Social Security, whether or not Vice President Biden, hopefully our next president, will really make concrete revisions to save this, as in upping the the amount of the payroll deduction, the salary earnings, it's what, 140,000 now, to make it higher, to make this make more sense.
Right.
I want to just take note at the moment that it's 8 o'clock, which is our technical ending time. So we don't have to all stop, but I know for some folks, they're going to need to let go. And I just want to really take a moment right now to thank everyone who's been in on this call. It's really extraordinary. I just feel the energy of all of us connecting and hearing these amazing presentations. Every single person did such a wonderful job. And then we get Heather, the trailer at the beginning, and then Heather's inspiring presence here. It's just really, really amazing. So I hope all of us feel well energized to get out there and do what needs to be done. And we can continue a bit with questions as long as Heather's able to stay, or as long as
I am going to have to go. I have some other commitments now.
Okay.
But I wanted to thank you. I was so glad that you asked me to come. I'm glad to. I feel like if I live near you, though, in this virtual space, I guess we can all come from any place.
Yeah, right.
But I feel I'm coming home, that we are of the same, we are the same stuff, the same values, the same caring. And so I appreciate your inviting me. I appreciate the work you've done. I appreciate the work that we will need to do together. And please come join those phone banks, the senior phone banks. You can also, the senior phone banks, you can go to seniors, text 30330 and text seniors to that. And we are running senior phone banks on a regular basis.
Great.
Heather, 65 Freedom Summer Book.
Oh,
say that, Heather, that,
how wonderful. My friend Joe Freeman was part of SCOPE. I know the project.
Hosea Williams is my friend's dad.
Oh, how wonderful.
Isn't that wonderful?
I knew when you spoke, we were probably of the same stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and Heather, I just wanted to say that Ann Connor said she first heard you in Chicago in 1970, and Janelle says you've been her mentor for 50 years.
Is Janelle on the call?
Janelle's on the call, yeah.
Oh, I send particular love to her. She and I really have been movement partners in very direct ways. And I look forward to when there is leadership that can get us through this so that we can all reconnect again.
Yes. And everyone, please, I hope everyone has signed up to do something on the poll.
And do be alert to the possibility we may well do another event in October, just in the interest of what's happening. We just don't have the date yet. Thank you, Heather. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I just have a nice quote that came from the film about Heather, a quote from Alice Palmer. She says, "If you don't do politics, politics will do you."
Yep.
We want to contemplate, right? Does anybody have a burning question or comment? We kind of would love to have some feedback. We didn't build that in, any kind of evaluation, but anybody wanting to send us emails about comments and suggestions, we really welcome that, okay?
Thank you, Jennifer and Betsy. This was awesome.
Oh,
what a great
good.
program. Thank you.
Oh,
really
good.
inspiring.
So
I'm so grateful to all these people. Yeah.
And Rose
Wonderful.
is saving the chat. So any questions that, you know, weren't answered, we will try to answer.
Yeah, and we've also made a recording which will go out as a follow-up email, and you can share it with other folks who might have missed the evening. And I just thank everybody so very much. It's really, really great. It's very heartening.
Okay.
So I guess, are we done?
I'm wondering if the info links will be shared in an email.
Yeah.
The links?
The links will be
Yeah.
shared in the email.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Onward to victory.
Yep. Right. We didn't give you proper acknowledgement, Rose, for all that you do to keep it rolling.
I'm happy to be the, you know, the tech support behind the scenes. Hey,
Well,
it looks like Betsy dropped herself off. I don't know if she's going to try to come back in or what, but I mean,
that's funny. I thought we were going to do a little bit of.
I thought we were too. That's why I didn't
I'll text her.
end button.
Yeah, she must have just dropped.